how did that gig with Joe happen, and what did it mean to you? Like, do you remember the first gig actually with Joe? And
Yeah, I mean, it was a little intimidating. I mean, Joe had been used to listening to Wayne Shorter every night. And I was like, oh man, how can he listen to me after he's been listening to Wayne Shorter? So I have to admit, I was a little nervous and intimidated. I think anybody would be,
yeah,
but I just did my best. I tried to change my style uh, from being a lick oriented guitar player
mm,
to be more of a melodic guitar player because I knew that Joe didn't like licks. He wasn't into licks. And when I anytime I would play a lick which he could clearly hear came from the bebop jazz vocabulary, he didn't like it, and he wasn't he did not have any problems with telling me he didn't like it.
sure.
So he was just saying, "Don't play that bebop shit in my band. This isn't a bebop band. You know, if you're gonna play something, improvise it. Don't quote other people and play licks." And I can't tell you how much that hurt me as a guitarist because that's all I was about was licks at that part of my career. I really hadn't learned to improvise. All I was doing basically is quoting other musicians.
Mm,
And I wish I had an opportunity to play with Joe now because now I'm much more of an improviser than I was back then. I was just a lick player back then.
mm.
And I just wish I had an opportunity to do it again because now I think I could play more stuff that he would like. But you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, sure. But come on, those records that are fantastic that you played, like so many
well,
bootlegs and videos of you guys.
I remember playing a solo. We recorded Little Rudy Tootie,
Yeah,
and he was which was a monk tune,
yeah,
and he was cool. He said, you're gonna play a solo on this tune, so just hang in here. I'll give you a couple hours. Play a solo on this tune. So I did. I punched in and I played what I thought was a really good solo on that tune. I made all the changes. It's a rhythm changes tune with a couple little quirks here and there. And I thought I played a really good solo. And Joe came in and he just said, erase that shit.
oh
He said, he said, if I wanted Charlie Christian on my album, I would have dug him up and hired him.
oh man.
And I said, okay. So he just said, play a solo and just play just improvise. And I played a first take, and that's what ended up on the record. I don't really remember making the changes, or I remember sort of trying to make it not sound like bebop, but more blues.
Yeah,
That's what he wanted. He wanted a more modern approach. He did not want me to play and emulate the bebop players that would have played that song in the 50s,
yeah,
right? Or
exactly. Yeah,
whenever it was recorded. That
interesting.
was Joe, He just I think he probably played enough bebop in his career after all those years with Cannonball.
Cannonball, yeah,
I
sure.
just
Yeah.
don't think he wanted to hear that music anymore. And I think it must have been a very brave, incredibly brave move to just say, I'm going to start this band with Wayne Shorter, and we are going to go a completely different direction than everything I've done in the past,
Mm,
which was basically bop.
yeah,
And I'm going to go in a completely melodic and creative direction that was new. And I think it took a lot of guts to do that. It was a really brave move because
yeah.
it wasn't accepted among a lot of the jazz critics. And it grew into something great, but at first wasn't very accepted.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was
Yeah,
just like when John Coltrane did A Love Supreme, people were like, how come you're not playing Stella by Starlight?
exactly.
Or when Miles Davis did Bitches Brew, you know, people
Yeah,
didn't want to hear it because it was not all of me, right? So
exactly. Yeah.
musicians take chances and they do things that are extreme, and then much later they get
Yeah,
credit.
that's always true. Yeah. How was Joe like towards you, young guys, on the tours and stuff? I mean, he was a seasoned veteran.
He was mean, but in a funny
Okay.
way. You know, that's was a cool thing about Joe is he was mean as hell, but in such a comical way that you could never be mad at him.
Sure.
So everything he said was funny. Almost Joe could have definitely had another career as a comedian. So even if he said something to you that wasn't very nice, he always said it in a way that made you laugh. And I mean, like most band leaders, that they want what they want. I'd have to say the same thing of myself, but I don't really have to tell my guys what to do. They just know what to do.
Yeah.
They just do it naturally. I don't really have to talk to them a lot and say, hey, don't do this or don't do that. They just kind of naturally know how to play. And some of the people in our band with Joe didn't. Some guys played too much, overplayed. Just, I don't know. I look back at my tone back then, wasn't that great. But Joe saw me about 5 years after I had left the band, and he just went up to me and he just said, you are the greatest ensemble player I've ever played with.
Wow, man. That's like,
and you know what? I know why he said that, because I know he didn't come up and say you were one of the greatest improvisers I've ever played with, because that would have been a complete bullshit statement. But ensemble wise, I was good for that band. Like, I really helped him arrange the music and helped him with sounds and with ideas. And I was kind of like, I kind of took over Jocko's role, because what I heard, that's what Jocko did a lot in Weather Report, was help arrange the music. Not Wayne's music, because Wayne did that, but Joe's music. Joe tends to just like to jam. And if Joe had his way, every song would be 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
So Jocko would say, okay, it's time to move on. It's time to go here. It's time to go there. What if we do this? What if we only make this long? So he was sort of like looking after the audience viewpoint of the music. And I kind of took over that job, and I was kind of the arranger on stage, because Joe, if you left it up to Joe, those tunes would go on forever.
Yeah.
He appreciated that. Even he would even say, if you think it's time to move on, give the signal to move on. And if I get pissed off, don't pay attention to me, because I like to jam, and I'm not going to like it when you signal the next section and cut me off, but do it anyway, because I know that we can't just play 2 songs a set.
Wow, shit. Yeah, that's a heavy responsibility.
Aware,
that's a heavy responsibility.
He was aware of how things could get out of control if it was left up to him.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that compliment that he gave me.
Wow, yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.